Hey all! If you're seeing this video, that means I'm now 21 years old as my birthday is on July 22nd. At least, provided I actually get this video out in time, which is highly unlikely. Anyway, this year I decided I wanted to do a video that could go hand in hand with my birthday. After a lot of thinking, I finally settled on this. These are the best games I've played from every year I've been alive. There will be a couple series repeats on this list, and some entries will have honorable mentions because some games are just too good to not get any spotlight. Outside of that, starting in 2002 means there will be 22 games to get through, and it all starts with... So as you would guess, I went back and played quite a few of the older games on this list, which is why I can say this list is starting with Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. While I haven't beaten The Binding Blade, I've played a decent bit of it, and that's really all I need to say the game is great. Old school Fire Emblem is a decent bit different than newer entries like the 3DS era and the Switch games. Generally a bit harder, the game is challenging in a good way though, and has made me think more than most of the other games I've played so far. The origins of Roy have also been fascinating, and the pixel art of the GBA Fire Emblems, second to none. Definitely gonna go back and finish this soon. Next up is Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade. A lot of what I said for the last entry is true here as well. Awesome design and fun gameplay all wrapped up in the first Fire Emblem to ever reach the States. I've actually completed Fire Emblem 7, and while it doesn't rank that high on my list personally, the game is still at least an 8.5 out of 10. The game has one of the most iconic characters in the series, Lyn, and the other main characters, Ninian, Eliwood, and Hector, are standouts as well. So this was the only entry on the list that I basically had no options for. Haven't played many games from 2004 apparently. However, this is a worthy inclusion nonetheless. Battlefront 1 was nowhere near as big a part of my childhood as its sequel, but this is the game that got me invested in the series to begin with. Fun gameplay and having an easy way to just pick up and play for a bit after school was what made these games so special to me. This game, alongside all the early Star Wars games like Republic Commando, will always hold a special place in my heart. An honorable mention to Battlefront 2 being literally the better version of Battlefront 1 and mods in the game carrying my childhood at some point. But anyway, woo! More Fire Emblem! But Fire Emblem Path of Radiance isn't any normal Fire Emblem though. This was the debut of my favorite Fire Emblem protagonist of all time and features one of my personal favorite side characters ever. And I still don't know how to say her name correctly. Nephany? Sure, let's go with that, whatever. Moving on to gameplay, more classic Fire Emblem with the addition of transforming beast units named Lagoos. I mostly use normal units in my playthrough, but the Lagoos characters were great addition gameplay and story-wise. A more fun story than usual, great character moments, and killer map design come together to make this at minimum a top 5 Fire Emblem game for me personally. Oh? Yeah, I like this. As someone who doesn't like shooters much, God, Gears of War is so special. I watched my dad play through this entire game, and it's what gave birth to my love of the series. I've played most of the games in the series, but the original and its remaster on the Xbox One are just different. The gritty atmosphere, the impactful introductions, and some sections that are still standouts to this day even with 5 other games in the series out. God bless chainsaw guns. Well, that was a nice break from Fire Emblem, right? Sequel to Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn was released in 2007 and is an interesting installment in the series. I will be honest and say this game is far from my favorite in the series, and Path of Radiance outclassed it a bit for me. This game is still great though. A huge roster of characters, an interesting divided up story that swaps per chapter, and they make Ike even more of a Chad. It's crazy. The only place it falls flat is some of the map design in the game is, far from my favorites. Many units also become somewhat unusable near the end of the game, which is a shame, but this was still a solid experience regardless, and is a fine inclusion on this list. So like most kids, I had a DS growing up. Kirby Superstar Ultra was one of the first games I ever got for it, and boy oh boy did I play it. This game encapsulated everything that was fun for me as a kid. It was colorful, felt fast-paced, the combat was easy to understand, and the level design was simple yet fun. Seriously, it's Kirby. How could I not love it? The premier horde shooter of the late 2000s, Left 4 Dead 2 was my and my buddy's favorite game in high school, and is my pick for this year. To this day, my version of the game has zombies as battle droids from Star Wars, and that will never change. The game itself is great, with the countless ways to play and destroy zombies, but this game will always have its legacy closely associated with the wonderful mod community, who gave me and so many others some of the most fun experiences of our lives. Custom characters, custom skins, custom maps. The mods for Left 4 Dead 2 were incredible and made the game so much more than it should have been otherwise. So believe it or not, 2010 was another year that I didn't really play much from, surprisingly. This lot came down to the two shooters I played from this year, Black Ops 1 and Halo Reach. Halo Reach was fun, the customization was amazing, and its story genuinely made me a little sad at times. But this goes to Black Ops 1. I played mainly story in the game, and oh my god, the story missions in that game were beyond fun. The plot was interesting to me, and went well alongside the smooth gun control and shooting mechanics. The game was simply sick, and there is no other way to describe it. Playing this with my cousins, playing this with my friends, playing this with my sister, those are all great memories for me, and I wouldn't have those without Black Ops 1. 3 games were released this year which stood out to me. Ocarina of Time 3D, which was my first exposure to the game ever. Skyrim, one of the best RPGs to grace the world and a game I've still never finished to this day. And Gears of War 3, the third entry in the series and one of my favorites by far. Nostalgia is strong for Gears of War 3 and Ocarina of Time 3D, but Skyrim gets this with no contest. Skyrim is incredible and grand and everything else you've heard online. Amazing world, amazing quests, funny voice lines, an awesome story, and one of the most memorable powers in gaming history. Skyrim really does have it all, and despite sinking over 100 hours over different saves, I've still yet to see the end of this masterpiece. Which I will fix eventually, I promise! I tried. I really tried not to do this, but this is the only year on the list with multiple entries. The games are Fire Emblem Awakening and Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is tied with another game on this list for my favorite game of all time, and right behind these two games, at third, sits Fire Emblem Awakening. The Xenoblade series is my favorite JRPG series by far, but to say it's my favorite series of all time would be a lie. While I think most Xenoblade games are a bit better overall, the consistent quality and fun I have with the Fire Emblem series is completely unmatched by any other game series. Both these games have shaped my taste and what I love in games today, and it would be a disservice to myself and these games to not include them on the list. Please, I beg of you, try these games today if you are able. You will not regret it. It sucks to go from complete praise to just saying games are good, but unfortunately, titles from 2013 never really stood out to me. Some games I've played from this year were Wind Waker HD, Tomb Raider, Pikmin 3, and our winner, Pokemon Y. All these games were good, but never really stood out to me that much, unfortunately. Pokemon Y gets the nod since it was my second Pokemon game, and the first one where I really understood what I was doing and having fun creating my team. I played fully through the game 3 different times and had a blast with all 3. I don't really like Pokemon anymore, unfortunately, but Pokemon Y really was a wonderful experience that I feel a good bit of nostalgia for. I wish I had something more exciting for this slot, and my honorable mention does go to the original Hyrule Warriors, but it was inevitable. Smash Bros for Wii U and 3DS was my most played game for multiple years after its initial release in 2014. The game was my introduction to competitive Smash and really amplified my desire to get better at the game. This game led me to multiple friends, my college team I play on, and some incredible memories of playing and watching. Smash 4 isn't the best story, nor the best gameplay, but boy oh boy was it special. Finally I can talk about my second favorite JRPG series. Tales of Zestiria is a game in the Tales of series, and the third game I've beaten from the franchise. Combat in Zestiria is fun as an action RPG. I really love the characters in the game personally, with Saray genuinely being one of my favorite protagonists, and the fusion mechanic between characters was a fun and unique mechanic I hadn't seen in games at the time, but would get to know, well, much later on. Tales of Zestiria isn't my favorite Tales game, or the best by far, but it was a great game that got me about 40 plus hours and still tops my other favorite game from this year, Fire Emblem Fates. From one Robbie Damon voice character to another, next up is Final Fantasy 15. The second Final Fantasy game I've beaten, and definitely a great game all around. I've noticed I am a huge fan of action RPGs, and this was really no different. I am addicted to combat, and Final Fantasy 15 made combat exciting and engaging at all times. Even when I didn't even want to be in combat! Yeah, the characters look like members of emo Big Time Rush, but these guys are awesome. Hilarious dialogue, true personal growth, a climactic story, all tied into a visual masterpiece that is still delightful to look at 7 years later. This looks familiar. Xenoblade game? Or a game somewhere on my top 10 of all time list. Sorry Xenoblade fans, but this time Persona 5 gets it. Persona 5 Royal is tied for my favorite game of all time, and Persona 5 was my introduction to this amazing series. Persona 5 is stylish, allows for creativity even within the set fusion system, has amazing voice actors and enough voice dialogue to make the writers of the Bible tremble. And, oh, right, quick spoiler warning for everybody. You whip out the Glock on a god! This game is awesome! Alright, this isn't exciting or nearly as fun as the other entries, so wow, big shocker, my favorite game from 2018 was Smash Ultimate. I don't like the game nearly as much now, but 1500 hours speaks for itself. I'll never put Smash in my top 10 favorite games list, but games I could always play, Smash will always be on the top of that. Wow, this looks familiar! It's just 2 more fucking JRPGs! Yeah, I really don't expand my taste much, huh? Sorry, Tales of Vesperia. Absolutely loved you, but this entry is for Dragon Quest XI. I've talked about Dragon Quest XI before on this channel, so I'll try and keep this brief. Amazing class diversity with the ability to build characters in many different ways, an insane amount of content that took me over 100 hours personally, and one of the best visual and audio presentations I've seen in the last few years. The only entry in the series I've played, and I did not regret it in the slightest. Okay, so I tried to not put remasters or remakes on the list unless it was the first time I ever played the game, but regardless, I need to give honorable mentions to Persona 5 Royal and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. These are my 2 favorite games of all time, and these are the best ways to experience both games. With that being said, 2020 felt like the year of the remake, with Final Fantasy VII also debuting its remake. Those who know about this game know it's more than a simple remake in 3D, but to talk about the game a bit. It has beautiful graphics even on last-gen hardware, incredibly fun combat that allows you to play as multiple party members all with highly unique styles, and wonderful locations and moments that never fail to stand out. The dancing minigame, fighting people on bikes, getting to fight a literal cigarette? Yeah, this game has got it all. Tales of Arise is my favorite Tales game, and is an absolute masterpiece, and no, I will not be taking opinions, thank you. The characters, the music, the combat, the world and design, I love all of it. The story definitely has some weak points, and while I like the characters, some are definitely better than others, but every character is highlighted and gets their moment and story that makes you care. It's not perfect, but I really do love this game a lot, and it, alongside Tales of Vesperia, were wonderful introductions to the Tales franchise for me. Anyone surprised by this? Literally anybody? Xenoblade 3, baby. I love every single character, even the hero units who don't get as much personality and exposure. The story is magnificent, and has some of the most heart-wrenching and beautiful moments I've seen in games. Combat is of course addictive, and becomes more fun the better combinations you can make. The game is a perfectly crafted masterpiece, and love letter to people who love the Xenoblade series, and is something I think anyone can get into, even if you haven't played the past titles. Just know that these 2 are awesome. It's Tears of the Kingdom. Honorable mention to Fire Emblem Engage, that was pretty fun. But it's Tears of the Kingdom. I really don't think I have to elaborate. Go look up the opening cutscene and you'll get it immediately. And that's the end of the list. I tried to keep the same style I do for the game review videos of naming off the high points of the game, but a bit faster so I could name all the games I needed to. If you guys like this content, please tell me in the comments because I am running out of ideas. With that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye! This is the deleted segment I had for Fire Emblem Fates before I remembered Tales of Zestiria existed. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Revelation is actually mid as fuck. Birthright isn't as bad as people say it is, but I just love the art style and I don't mind easy games that much. But Conquest is mainly what earns the game this spot. Also, if you were confused about anything I just said, just know Fire Emblem Fates should only be one game and not three. Anyway, as for Conquest, confusing but fun story, awesome setting, some of the coolest and most unique characters ever, and mommy? Sorry, I lost my cool there. Seriously though, she's overrated, people. Stop being so down horrendous.